Hey loves, welcome back to the channel. So today I thought that I could do a planner system update for you all. This isn't gonna be like my usual planner update where I'm talking about I don't know, like the stuff necessarily that I've done, but more so the actual system to itself. Um, well, I just ripped my cardigan. That's lovely. But yeah, I felt like I could just make like a system update because things are going to look a little different for June and hopefully for the rest of the year. Because I'm going to try to nip everything that I want in the bud now. I feel like the first half of the year, things were kind of all over the place. I tried to manipulate my system into rings and it just didn't work out. I got a little stressed out about the archival aspects of that because I remember how stressful it was when I was heavily using rings to archive. And then I moved back into a bullet journal, but I couldn't get the right sizing for this year. So I went through a little bit of a roller coaster until I got, like the TN and the size and all that good stuff. So there is a little bit of a difference that I want to try to do for my planner system. And I felt like I would share some of these ideas and some of like the things that I'm thinking about so that way it reads across, and maybe if you're also in the same boat, you can take some of these ideas and use them for yourself as well. So I'm just going to kind of show you basically where I was leaning towards, but I don't think that I'm going to go this route, but I do think I'm going to take elements from it for this season because of just like where I am in my current planner situation. So I'm just going to show you what my mindset was. So if you remember, I had purchased this black cover. I got this from Barnes and Nobles. The cover, not the contents inside, but I got the cover from Barnes and Nobles, and all I did was poke a hole through the back and put an elastic. Wasn't quite sure if I was gonna do that because this isn't like real leather and it's really flimsy, but I wanted to be able to close the contents that was contained in here, or to be able to conceal the contents that would be in here. And I put it on the back and not the spine because it sits really flush. I don't know. It sits really flush, and I was like, I didn't want to dent the book. This is a hardcover book, so I ended up just putting it on the back, and that doesn't really bother me. But I was thinking about using this. So for those of you who do not know, this season I was really heavily considering goal planning, and I looked into quite a few different goal type planners, and in the future I might still try some of these products out, only because I feel like I really like goal planning, but I can't do a dated goal planner and I can't do a consistent goal planner throughout the entire year because goals change all the time. So I do like to use them for specific seasons of my life. Like right now, I'm heavily into my fitness goals. And so it just makes a lot of personal sense to incorporate goal planning into my system or into my life to help me build consistency and to also hold myself accountable for a lot of the things that I want to manifest for myself. So I was heavily leaning more towards this Clever Fox planner. This is the Clever Fox daily planner, and I'm not going to go too in depth with the outlay or inlays of this book because I do have reviews on it. But one of the reasons that I was heavily considering this above everything else that I have is solely for the fact that this planner is jam-packed with everything that I would need to basically map out all the things, all the areas that I'm trying to capture right now in my weekly and daily spreads. So this gives me a little bit more direction because it has that weekly overview or weekly breakdown, which can really help you to map out your week a little bit better than you normally would if you're just planning your weeks via just like a week to week basis, like what I'm doing now in my traveler's notebook. I really like this because it essentially has your top priorities, what your goal is going to be, a habit tracker, a split between your work and your personal to do. And then you have these life balance areas where you can literally sit down from week to week and map them out and focus on specific things that you want to try to accomplish. And as well, your daily pages are geared towards helping you work on some of those goal type areas. So yeah, I was really leaning more towards this. I think though what bothers me or what may concern me from moving into this is that it is a daily planner. And I feel like that once I started, I will feel obligated to have to push through. And I know it's not a dated planner, but I don't want to start this and then start to feel like I'm obligated to using this, because these planners aren't necessarily expensive, but they're not necessarily cheap. $26 is still $26, and I feel like if I'm going to use this, then I need to be fully committed as to this is what I want to use, because this planner has a lot of elemental areas, like there's gratitude, there's rituals that you can write, there's a vision board that you can create, there's your goal breakdown for all your life areas, and there's also your focus and mind map. And then at the end of every single week, you essentially have a weekly overview where you're going to be consistently asking yourself these same questions every single week. So I love these planners, and I think that in my planning system, this would work phenomenally. Just being able to capture a lot of those things that I want to do, especially because although physical activity is a big part of what I want to accomplish right now, I don't necessarily think that it's the sole thing that I want to capture right now, because I'm still working on a lot of other areas, and I don't want this to be a thing where that's the only thing that I'm planning for, because I have a whole life full of, different areas that I still need to focus on as well. But I was heavily leaning towards this. And so this planner has weekly trackers. And so for all the other life things that I wanted to kind of condense and track, I was thinking, because earlier, I want to say later last year, kind of leading into this year, I was contacted by Clever Fox to share these items, and I handpicked a lot of these items because I was eyeing them personally for myself prior to them contacting me, and I just never got a chance to really dive into this when I did the review, and I really thought that I was going to dive into these products. I've used Clever Fox for many seasons of my life. But yeah, I just never got to dive into some of the newer products that I was really, considering. Hence, I was really considering this habit calendar for being able to capture some of the other daily type areas that I might be interested in keeping track of. Because the calendars go from daily to weekly to monthly, I could condense a lot of the other stuff that I'm trying to keep track of as well. So I was thinking maybe this system would be very life and goal based, perfect all around system for me, only because the daily part has, a space to do a to-do list. And I think that's another big issue, is that I need to work on my to-do list. As I mentioned in my last video, I'm reading a book that literally talks about the to-do list system. And I'm trying to understand what all the different types of to-do lists really are, and trying to identify what type of person or which type of category that I fall into, because in the grand scheme of things, it feels like I just make a to-do list and they have literally no direction, and I just keep adding to them. And essentially, I would like to make a very conscious and precise to-do list that is achievable versus just an ongoing list of things that don't really have any, direction. So I really liked this layout, this format for that. This helped a lot last summer, and I got a great use out of this planner last summer, but I'm a little intimidated to try it again, only because I've been really enjoying the freedom and the flexibility to come and go and to create different layouts and spreads the way that I see fit. And so that's the only thing that really scares me about wanting to go back into this. But I do like the schedule, and I talked about that you can completely ignore this schedule because it is very faint, and you can either memory keep or journal, or you could extend on your to-do list, or you could do whatever. There's so many different ways that I feel like I could truly accomplish a lot of stuff using this planner, but I don't know. And then I wanted to pair it with this notebook because all the kind of stuff that I'm doing right now when it comes to like journaling, memory keeping, all the random stuff, the random things that I'm putting into my current bullet journal, I felt like I could do all that stuff in here. And yeah, so this was one like planner system situation that I was heavily considering, but I haven't completely exiled it out, but it is not something that I'm leaning towards anymore. And we'll talk about some things that I'm going to be doing with my planning system. So right now I'm using a standard traveler's notebook. I changed out this cover. My system is very chunky. Granted, I only have 3 booklets really. So in actuality, it wouldn't be as chunky. Like if I took this out, there wouldn't be as much overhang, but I'm holding on to a food journal, and yeah, I'm holding on to some essential things. Like I have a monthly calendar, some bits and bobs in here, and then like some other little elemental things that I consider using. But I'm thinking about doing away with some of that stuff because I just found that I didn't really use it for the last 2 months. And so it doesn't really make sense to hold on to unnecessary things, if that makes sense. But this leather is super floppy also, by the way. It's very flimsy and floppy, which I love. This is also from Wanderings. If you didn't see, I did an unboxing video sharing this tin. I decided to use this because I wanted to kind of see first if it would be something that I would like or would enjoy using for the next couple of months. But I don't know, it's very floppy. I like it now, but it does kind of like annoy me a little bit that things kind of sit a little funky in here just because it's so floppy. But nonetheless, in my current like planning system, right, I have a lot of stuff that I like to capture. I like to be able to capture like little bits and bobs like this, like my future plans. And not to say that I couldn't do these things in the Clever Fox. I just think that the spacing, the size within this system in itself just really works for my lifestyle because it's still pretty small and compact if, like if I clean this all out, which we're gonna get to, but if I cleaned all of this out and only carried the things that I was solely using, this would be a really small and compact system. Not to say that the Clever Fox situation that I have set up over there isn't very compact. It is super compact, but it is a wider system. So, and I want to make sure that when I'm making changes to my system in itself or updating my system to better suit my needs, that I'm making very conscientious decisions that really help versus hinder me from achieving certain things that it is that I'm trying to achieve. Mind you, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm also a wife, and Yeah, I have a lot of different areas that I want to focus on. And a lot of times when I have no direction or no idea how I want to lay out things, it can become a little bit frustrating when you're trying to figure your life out in the grand scheme of everything. So I use this weekly booklet mainly to capture a lot of like the time things, the upcoming events. I also use it for future planning. It is an undated weekly, which again, something that I'm really enjoying. I'm just noticing that I'm just pushing further and further away from the pre-dated planners, only because in my type of system, I like the flexibility of being able to jump into something to make those necessary changes where need be and not feel an internal guilt behind abandoning something that was dated, because in an undated system you can always go back, you can always pick it back up wherever life may take you. But for the dated stuff, I'm just finding that it stresses me out a little bit more, hence why I kind of abandoned my day timer stuff very early on, because I wasn't keeping up with it. The space was just not enough. And yeah, it had a lot of wonderful elements, but I really just enjoy the flexibility that bullet journals just allow me to have. But nonetheless, so I have been doing this kind of planning for quite a while. And here's where a lot of the changes are going to be made. So I've been doing a lot of this sticky note type tracker tracking and all of that good stuff. And not to say that this isn't working beautifully for me. It is working great, and I'm being able to track on a consistent day-by-day basis. But I think that I'm going to try to change my layouts just a little bit. Now, I had toyed around with the idea of possibly drawing out a weekly where I had a week on one page and then a notes page, but I didn't quite like that idea either. I stepped away just to grab something. Now, this isn't perfect by any means. I didn't cut this perfect. And yeah, I didn't round any corners. I didn't cut it perfect, but I want to share it anyway because I can just reprint it and make it perfect. But I had thought very heavily about redoing this weekly, specifically to give me a little bit more space so that way I could kind of cut down on some of the sticky notes. I like the sticky notes because, again, I don't have to draw out anything. I don't have to do anything extra. There's literally like a sticky note that I can just fill out and then plop it down. But I do feel like the weekly area definitely needs like a little bit more space for me to elaborate on some of those weekly goals. Now, what I like about the Clever Fox daily is that they have those 6 months of like just hardcore and very detailed, in-depth planning, and that they break down your week so that you have those elements that you can really focus on. And I don't have that in here. I wish so badly that I could have tried out the Clever Fox Pocket Planner. I don't really want to purchase it because there's probably a high chance that I probably wouldn't use it if I couldn't put it into my TN or something like that. So I'm just working with what I have, but I wish I would have tried it out because that would have gave me the idea of whether or not that would be something that I could use as well, because that weekly planner also has a lot of those goal type elements as well. But nonetheless, I'm using what I have, and I'm just going to try to tweak what it is that I have. So I like this, but if I am to slim down this system, I had essentially thought about, so this is a principle from Anthology, not the cover, because I took the original cover that said Anthology on it, and yeah, it's from Anthology Notes. I took the original cover and I did away with that, and I have printed a Tina picture, but my printer kind of jacked up the print, and then I cut this completely wrong, so I have to redo all of this. But I was thinking about switching out my current weekly to this where it is just the months and the weeks, and it's just 4 months at a time. So you would have the weekly, or I'm sorry, you would have the monthly, and then you would have your weeks followed, and then it would go back into another monthly, if I can get there. So you would have month, weeks, and there's 4 in here. So I thought about possibly switching this out and using this. This would allow me the space that I would need to essentially do all of my goal tracking, goal planning on one side, and still have my weekly. So I don't know. I could also draw a line down. Yes, it would take up half of my box, but I could also draw a line down and try to draw out some sort of tracker. I'm not really sure. I'm going to show you some things that I'm using for my next bullet journal, which will kind of help with a lot of the spacing aspects, but I'm not really sure. I like my weeklies opposed to my dailies because it's just easier to track things in this area of my planning, and it's also just easier to keep everything like kind of smushed together or archived together, and I can find a lot of it. You might be hearing my son screaming and getting yelled at all in the same accord. But yeah, so I'm going to be making system updates to this. Now, some things that I'm going to be adding to my system to kind of combat that. I don't know if you guys remember. And I know you guys are so sick and tired of seeing this bullet journal, but I want to kind of share some of these little elements, and I'm pulling out these things because these are the changes that I'm going to be making that is going to help with my overall planning. So last summer I didn't have anything really to make these little planning cards, and obviously I made these ones because after we got all our stuff, I was just like, yes, I can make these now, and I can print these out. So a lot of this is like routine based type stuff, and actually let's just take this out because I need it. Does this one come out? Okay, cool. That way we can do away with the binder. All right, so I thought about making some more of these, and I feel like maybe I need like to make like a removable checklist, one that I can use with, I don't know, wet erase markers, and I could essentially keep these tucked in here into my planner, and they can have all of the same questions that the Clever Fox weekly has, and that way I can still do a little bit of goal planning without changing my system so much. So I was thinking about that. I was thinking like I could make them. Now, when I did these ones, I didn't have a specific size, but I was thinking like maybe I could try them out on index cards first, kind of like what I did here when I did these routines, and I kind of mapped out some of like those hardcore areas. I made them a little bit more neater when I typed them out and put them in my rings. So these ones are like these aren't like routines, but they're like cleaning charts. But I was thinking like specifically, like if I wanted to, I could essentially map out some of this stuff and then put it here and then be able to check it off. So I'm not really sure if that's the route that I want to go, but I can design it and put it in here. I could also do it like on these little index cards, and I thought maybe I talked about this in the last couple of videos way back, that I didn't necessarily think routine or task-based cards would really help because I kind of already know a lot of the routines already, but I do feel like those kinds of things would help. I do have these trackers here. They're calendars, but I do have these here, but they don't really ask me those reviewing type questions, or like they don't really go into depth about the kind of areas that I want to focus on. So if I want to get a little bit more goal focused in my pages, then I've got to have something to kind of help me or guide me. So I was thinking that if I don't decide to even attempt the Clever Fox, then maybe I could create a file that would be like this size, maybe laminate it, put it on a dry erase or get a dry erase marker and just kind of check off those elements. And then that way I would have all of that with me every single week, and I would never have to worry about switching out of a system. All right, so another thing that I have been thinking to change in my system, and I'm making subtle changes because I feel like subtle changes is what also is going to elevate and help you stay consistent with your current system, is that, okay, so for instance, in my weekly booklet, I had always been doing, for the last 9 or 8 months, I have been doing this thing where I call it the ICDT method. For those of you who are new to my channel, it's basically like the Alistair method or rolling weekly, where at the top you essentially would have Monday through Sunday and then you would have all of your tasks. But that doesn't work for me. So instead I have ICDT, where I label it I for in progress, C for canceled, D for done, T for transfer, and then there's a star symbol to indicate when the task is really important. So essentially I was doing this and I was just dumping every single thing into this list or into this space. And I'll be honest, it's not categorized. It doesn't have a specific anything. And so a lot of times it's just like, well, what comes first? Obviously I can tell what's important based off of the symbols that might be next to it, but still, again, it's not like category based. So for this week, I decided that I would test out categorizing my brain dump, or organized brain dump, if you will. And I got this idea specifically from reading the book, the to-do list system, about having categories for some of your to-do lists. So trying to organize them a little bit more. So I split these up into really 3 sections and then 1 subsection. So it is house stuff, YouTube stuff, and then it is, what did I say this one is? Oh, next week, or stuff that will need to go into next week or that I need to work on. And then this part says other. So essentially what I want to think about doing for my next bullet journal and incorporating into my system is that I want to start breaking up these weekly lists like this into different subsections, so that way, or different categories and subsections, so that way that I am tackling everything that needs to be tackled within those categories, and everything isn't like getting left behind or I'm forgetting to do stuff. There are YouTube things that I would like to do because I'm a YouTuber and I do film a lot of my stuff for you guys. There are things that I want to touch bases on, and obviously I want to make better content for you guys. So I try to remember to just add YouTube into my life of things. There's also house stuff that I'm focused on. Obviously, I have weekly stuff that I do, daily stuff that I do, and then there are things which this would more so come up for the end of the week. So Monday, the earlier parts of the week rather, this area will be kind of blank. But as the week goes on, if there are things that I know I need to get done by next week, then those things will go on my list, and then I will see them, and then I can transfer those things first to my next week list. And then things from the top, whether they get done this week or not, I can see them a little bit more clear. So it's just kind of taking, my son, it's kind of taking this list of things and putting them in different categories now, so that it's not a jumbled mess. And then obviously my to-do list, my dailies, I don't really have any like real area that I want to definitely change about it. But I will say I'm trying to get to an area where there's like no pictures, no nothing really. Okay, so like here, for instance, I want to get to like a daily spread where it is not so much like just the weather, just the dinner, and then my to-do list and then notes. But I want to get to a daily page where it's more categorized, where I have like my top 3 lists, like how I started to incorporate. Maybe I can start to incorporate a timeline again, which I think doing, let me see here, that was one. That was a timeline, but like doing something like maybe this in my daily space again. Am I still in frame? Yes. Doing something like this, or even something very small and minute like this, will also help me break up some of the areas. And maybe instead of doing like my top 3, that I also write down my top goals, and then maybe incorporating in my weekly somewhere where I have my week goal, like what my goal for this week will be. I do a little bit of goal planning. Let's see. I do a little bit of goal planning where I kind of have like things that I want to work towards. I'm trying to find it. Things that I want to work towards, and I end up using these goal sticky notes, which they do work. They definitely work. But I feel like if I'm not looking at it every single day, some of those goals just kind of fall off to the wayside and they just don't get touched. So yeah, those are some of the system updates that I'm going to be doing. All right, so I had to pause the video and step away, and I'm back now. So yeah, like I was saying, those are some of the like system type things, updates that I'm going to be making. Another little thing that I think I'm going to try to incorporate into my daily spreads is like having a space at the end of every week where I just kind of sit down and do like my highlights, what I missed, and all that good stuff. So like the end of the week review. I think that the Clever Fox has those prompts, and they are very detailed, and they ask many questions about like how you are in your progress, especially throughout the week. They're asking like how you are throughout your progress, that oftentimes it can feel very monotonous when you keep answering the same questions every single week. But I think it is important that you ask yourself these questions, only because, well, if you start to notice patterns, especially if you're working on goals and things like that, then you can see what it is that you're putting off and all that good stuff. I think that I'm going to try it out in my TN first before committing to maneuvering over into, you know, the Clever Fox if I really want to dive into this. I'll be honest, I don't move into these planners lightly because, one, I really like the Clever Fox planners and I don't want to waste them with just BS. But also that it is jam-packed with a lot of different areas, and you need to be able to sit down and focus on these areas if you're using this planner. And to miss a week or to miss a section will put you back with what feels like months. So I like to be all in if I'm going to use these planners, but I don't know if that's where my mind specifically is, because I feel like I can just take little bits and pieces, and then as I continuously build this habit where I'm working on my goals for fitness and all that other stuff, then maybe making the transition into this would be a better decision long term. But right now I'm so indecisive with what I want in terms of my goal mapping and all that other stuff, that I think that it would just be better to just try in a blank notebook and try to incorporate as much of it right now that I humanly possibly can before taking that deep plunge into a more structured system like this. So yeah, that's some things that I'm considering. Now, moving forward, so I won't be in this for June. Now, before you even say it, think it, I am not leaving TNs. I just won't be in this cover, and some things with this system will be changing very slightly. Like, it's not even that big of a change. One of the biggest changes that's going to be happening is I am not going to be using the Just Scribbles book for my dailies for this next, months. I bought a lot of these books because I really like the compactness and the 5mm grid. I also like the fact that the paper is 68 GSM Tomoe River paper, because it does very much so feel like the Leuchtturm paper. I like the texture of these notebooks, the floppiness, the feel of these notebooks. I like them all the way around. However, the fact that I was able to get 2 months in here is insane. Granted, I assumed that I would be able to get 2 months in here, but I really didn't know how many months I would be able to get in here when I initially started. So yeah, and then, okay, so I have like 16 or 17 pages left, and I'm assuming with, the way that I'm planning right now, I'll be able to get the rest of May in here. But then I started using the back. Well, I only used 1 page of the back, but I started like testing some of my gel pens because I wanted to use some of my gel pens. And then there's some other things that I'm thinking about doing, which is testing out different daily spreads that I want to do, and also maybe a test weekly with all the elements that I just talked about. I'm thinking about making a test page for that. So that will definitely take up some of my daily pages. And yeah, so I'm not really sure if all of May is going to really fit in there. Also, I like to do a lot of this like memory keeping type stuff in my planners too. So I'm making some slight changes. These are some older spreads that I had shared some time back. I had shared these spreads. I tested them out in this Leuchtturm bullet journal, and this is a day on 2 days on 1 page, and then this is a full day. So I've been, I think I'm gonna try some of these in my TN just to see how they fit. Essentially because what I want to do is like condense my to-do list. I think that my to-do list is just it's long. Like even in here it's long, and there's a bunch of stuff. Even though I can read this, I can understand what this is, but there's really like no split between what's housework and what's personal and what's errands. Like there's no indication of that here. I think I just need to categorize things a little bit better, or put things in a more precise or write them out in a way that makes sense of what comes first, instead of just jumbling everything together. I also think that maybe incorporating back into my daily spreads like water intake, and maybe making a sleep spread will also aid in my fitness area. As you know, fitness and hydration and nutrition also plays big components, or big key components in your weight loss journey. So I think that maybe trying to develop a spread that captures some of these elements may also help me. So I'm going to be playing around with different daily spreads. So my dailies will look slightly different from this. That's a weekly. Will look slightly different from the way that you guys are used to seeing it. So what is changing with these 3 booklets? Okay, so this is what I have. Peep. So I told you guys I bought this Sterling Ink 520 page book. This is an old TN that I've had for about, I want to say I've had this TN for about maybe 6 years now. 5 or 6 years. This is a more of a wider TN, hence the spine. It fits everything that I want just a whole lot better. I thought that I would slim down, transition from it being like patches here, charms and stuff here. Like I thought that I would just take away some of that and just keep it very grungy and like not so much aesthetic, but just grungy and just the bare basics. So some things that are going to be coming out of my current system is like I have a separate booklet that I'm using for food journal. I'm going to try to incorporate that into a larger notebook that sits on the strings, so that way I don't have to necessarily carry an extra booklet, because I think a lot of the bulk in my current system came from the fact that I'm carrying a food journal and also a little pocket monthly. So I just want to kind of bounce in between for a second to kind of show you guys. Like right now, a lot of the stuff that I have in my TN is very thought out. Like I don't really carry a lot of junk necessarily. I try to carry things that make more sense. You may be hearing my son screaming. It is what it is, guys. I apologize. But I try to carry a lot of things that have a bit of use. I've been using this monthly since the start of this year. And I will say it has came in clutch for a lot of reasons, because a lot of times when I need to do that forward type planning or just planning for different things, upcoming events, upcoming vacations, this works phenomenally. Like I can't stress enough like how of an ease it was to be able to have this and be able to come in here and just write down stuff months from now. This is a 2-year booklet. So all of 2025 and all of 2026 is in here. And I find myself writing little notes and stuff in the back. So everything that I'm using has a purpose, and I want to keep with my functional system, because as you know, I'm more of a functional planner, and I don't have a whole lot of fluff with my planning. It's very simple, and I would say it's simple, and I don't too much stray apart from that. So I think that this will definitely transfer over into the new cover. Now, I wanted to keep this as compact and as slim as it is right now, because this drove me slightly nuts, the fact that everything was so just flared out. And this TN cover can hold a lot of the things that I want a lot better. So I thought, for, you know, like I can keep this booklet and it will still look very slim and very put together. I've even tried it with my weekly book and the folder that I have, and still everything was still very compact. Another reason why I was considering this principle though is because if I got rid of this and condensed my weekly planning along with the monthly planning, essentially I would only need this, the booklets that I have in here, and yeah, this would still be very, very slim. Again, I'm trying to think of conscious planning versus just putting a bunch of bullshit into my system for the sake of just having it. So I'm trying to do what I feel is necessary. Sorry, picking up stuff off the floor. I'm trying to do a lot of things that just feel necessary versus just for shits and giggles. Like I said, I want to kind of sit down and make some of these like task cards and routine cards. I have the little routine thing here, but I think that I just didn't gravitate to making this. I think that I will try it out. But I really liked using task-based cards when I was using my LT bullet journal from last summer from the bullet journal brand, or, you know, from the bullet journal this. I really liked using these handmade task cards. These just worked so great in being able to see like routines and be able to see things that I needed to be working on. And so I really want to kind of like incorporate that back into my system, because I've gotten away from that, and I think that this would be a great element to kind of keep into my system. So that's going to be going back in. But for right now, I think the only things that I'm going to really be transferring is this like pocket monthly, which, like I said, works great. And my weekly is the only other thing that I'm going to be transferring over into my new system. So I'm doing away with this notebook in the front. I never went back to, hold on for a second. I never went back to this notebook. I don't think that I'm going to totally just abandon it and not use it because I wrote in it, but I never went back to this after I used it for journaling, and then I tried to use it for prompts. I had printed out a bunch of like these little yearly prompts. This one was for May. I never even went back to this. I have some for the rest of the year tucked away in here. I think I'm just not into that kind of journaling, and I'm just not into putting my journals, the long form type journaling. I'm just not into putting that kind of stuff into my planners. Like, I like long form journaling, but I like it in a separate book that doesn't feel like the whole world can see, because obviously it's more personal and in depth for me. So yeah, and I feel like that I would accidentally share a lot of that on here if it was in here. So yeah, I just think that by doing that, I kind of screwed myself with this notebook. So I think I'm just going to take this out and just continuously use it for off the camera type of journal. But what I do think that I will do is I have the sterling ink, and this isn't all the way set up. Like I said, I'm going to be moving things over into this, but I'm going to try to keep it as compact as it is right now, because I really like how very, very compact this is, with no charms, no nothing, just very compact and grungy. And like I said, I moved some stuff around. Some of the little elements that I do like, and is also a big thing for me with my bullet journals, my notebooks, is that they gotta have bookmarks. I gotta be able to close it, and it has to be portable. This, I strung a bookmark through. It has a closure. It's compact. It's perfect. And I feel like this is just perfect all the way around. So like I said, my next bullet journal will be this sterling ink in one. This is a 520 page. I strung it here. Hold on. I strung it twice because it is a thicker book. I wanted to give it a little bit more structure versus just having it down the middle of the spine. So I strung it here in the front, and then I also strung it again here, and that way it sits more flush to the actual spine of the TN. If you can see, it fits a lot better. And then I also have a Just Scribbles book, and this book is going to be my goal book, my brain dump book, my notes for all my goal planning. So I'm just going to brainstorm and do all the crazy stuff that I want to do in here, because I feel like that's the perfect space for me to map out goals, make goals, work on goals. It's just have a dedicated space for it. So in a sense, you could say that it is a brain dumping book, but it's going to be dedicated to goals. I only need one bullet journal, one to rule them all. So by this being a much larger book, I'm hoping to get quite a few months into this planner. Hopefully I can get the rest of the year in here, but we'll see. I noticed the other day that this also has dots. I'm not really sure how the dots lay out, but I'm going to try that out and see, like, you know, what the dots really help with. I assume that they help with like weekly and daily spreads. I'm not really sure. I'm definitely going to transfer my weekly over unless I decide to reprint the anthology weeks and months. But right now I'm really digging my current weekly, and I just really want to have, you know, most of the year. Right now I have April through into the next year. So April into March in here, but right now I have 2 solid months in this book, which is the second quarter. So yeah, I really like that, only because, you know, I didn't have to draw it out. Everything that I need is here. So just a few different changes with my bullet journals. Like I said, I am updating my system, but I wanted to show you guys what the system currently is and then where the changes will be made in my system. And also, just to iterate before we close this video out, I had got a comment about, so I had posted something on my channel about an old bullet journal. It was an A6 an A6 Sequins that I was using many years ago. I think 2018, not many years ago, but it was quite a few years ago. 2018, 2019. And as you look at that post, my planning is still the same, though it is a lot toned down. And the comment, I'll put the highlight from the comment, is the comment had a highlight about it alienates others when they look at how neat someone else's planner is and stuff like that. I will say that over time, your system is going to change. It is going to, you know, grow as you grow in the things that you do. And, you know, when you're starting out, you know, your handwriting over time, it changes. And if you didn't know, the more you write, the more that you perfect your handwriting, the neater it becomes. So, you know, I've always been pretty neat about my stuff. I've always been that way my entire life. Even then, when I was using that particular bullet journal, I thought even that time of my life, it was very neat and just put together. But, you know, you grow into different ways that you like to visually see things and do things. And so, you know, as I continue to write more and pick up, you know, the habit of documenting, my handwriting just over the years just got better. But it shouldn't alienate anyone to feel as though because theirs isn't on the same neatness level that their planners aren't worth sharing or worth, you know, talking about and things like that. What really truly matters is if the planner is being used to your liking, if you're using it and it's helping you accomplish all the things that you set out to accomplish for whatever you're using it for, that's really all that should matter, and that really all is that matters. Because it doesn't matter if it's sloppy or if it's neat. If it's not helping you do something, then it's as good as trash, right? So I hope that we can eventually learn to get out of this comparison phase. I know that there's always going to be that visual of comparing to others, but I just wanted to let you know that, yeah, it shouldn't alienate you. I hope that I'm not making you feel alienated or some kind of way about, you know, the way mine's look. You know, what I'm doing will look different from the next person. And yeah, our biggest critics sometimes is ourselves. And like, even though others may think it's neat, we may think it's really sloppy and like not neat at all. So keep that in mind when you're looking at other people's stuff. But yeah, that's what the system is going to be looking like. I'm just making some very subtle changes because I don't necessarily want to change my system. I like what I'm doing. I like my bullet journal. I like my the size of my bullet journal. This is a great size. Like, if someone would have told me last year to try a TN again, like a standard, I don't know if I would have tried it. But I'm glad that, because I tried the Leuchtturm 411, I'm glad that when I was trying that notebook, I wasn't too thrilled with it at the moment and pushed myself into trying a slimmer A5 size, because I would have never figured it out that I really liked the size. I just feel like the height of an A5, but the slimness was just such a better bargain for me. And yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. So why even change something that I really like? So with that being said, I'm going to close out this video, and hopefully in the coming days. Maybe we can sit down and do some of these like task cards together. Maybe we can make them together. So I got questions on how I made these ones last summer, and I tried to say it in so many words that all I did was take printable sticky notes and glue them down onto index cards and just fill them out. But sometimes that gets, you know, like looked over. People just didn't hear that part that I just laminate or wrote on sticky notes and taped them down. So maybe, you know, like we can make some of these like little hand type things together and show you, maybe I can show you how like I use these to help in areas where I might forget. So yeah, I hope you found the video helpful. I hope that there were a lot of good ideas for you, and I will catch you guys in the next planner related video. Bye, loves.